The handcuffs clicked, with the satisfying precision of karma finally arriving at its destination. Patricia Whitmore, our beloved HOA president and self-appointed neighborhood dictator, stood on my front lawn in her perfectly pressed blazer, wrists behind her back, as Postal Inspector Rodriguez read her rights. Her face had gone from its usual shade of entitled pink to a delicious shade of oh shit gray. Mail theft is a federal crime, Mum, Rodriguez said with the kind of professional calm that comes from years of dealing with people who think rules don't apply to them. Tampering with retirement benefit checks carries a maximum penalty of 5 years in federal prison. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for water. For the first time in 3 years, she had nothing to say. I sipped my coffee from my front porch, watching the show. Sweet justice tastes even better when it's served ice-cold with a side of federal charges. But let me back up. This delicious moment didn't happen overnight. 3 years ago, Patricia moved into the house at the end of Maple Street like a hurricane wearing pearls. Within 6 months, she'd somehow bullied her way into the HOA presidency, a position nobody had wanted until she decided our quiet little neighborhood needed proper management. I should have seen the warning signs. The way she measured everyone's grass with an actual ruler. How she'd patrol the streets every morning at 7 a.m. sharp, clipboard in hand, looking for violations like a suburban bounty hunter. The passive-aggressive notes she'd leave on cars parked 1 inch too far from the curb. But I was retired, happy, and honestly, I thought it was kind of entertaining watching her terrorize the Hendersons about their garden gnomes. That was before she set her sights on me. The first shot fired was over my mailbox. I'd had the same sturdy black mailbox for 15 years, nothing fancy, just functional. But Patricia decided it wasn't aesthetically consistent with the neighborhood's elevated standards. Mrs. Thompson, she'd said, standing in my driveway like she owned the place, this mailbox simply won't do. I'm implementing new guidelines for mailbox uniformity. You'll need to replace it with something more appropriate. I'd smiled politely. I like my mailbox just fine. Thank you. Her eye twitched. It's not a request. Then it's a good thing I don't take orders from you. That's when the war began. Patricia launched her campaign with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Suddenly, my trash cans were improperly positioned. My garden hose was visually disruptive. My bird feeder was attracting unwanted wildlife apparently. Cardinals were now classified as pests. Every day brought a new violation notice. Every week, another HOA emergency meeting where Patricia would dramatically gesture at photos of my supposed infractions like she was presenting evidence in a murder trial. The other neighbors started avoiding eye contact. The Hendersons moved their garden gnomes indoors. Even Mr. Peterson took down his American flag rather than deal with Patricia's proper flag etiquette lectures. But I'm a retired high school teacher. I spent 30 years dealing with teenagers who thought they could outsmart me. Patricia was just another bully with a clipboard, and I don't negotiate with terrorists. So I did what I do best. I started documenting everything. Every violation notice went into a folder. Every interaction got recorded on my phone. Every meeting was transcribed. I photographed my mailbox, my trash cans, my garden hose from every angle, creating a detailed record of Patricia's escalating harassment. The beauty of dealing with a narcissist is that they always push too far. They can't help themselves. Patricia's next move was to declare that all neighborhood mail delivery was inefficient and needed centralization. She convinced the Postal Service to install a cluster of mailboxes at the end of the street, arguing it would be more secure and organized. What she didn't tell them was that she'd volunteered to manage the mail distribution herself. Red flag. Number 1. I started noticing my mail arriving later and later. Bills that should have taken 2 days were taking a week. Magazine subscriptions went missing. My pension checks direct deposited, thankfully, were the only thing arriving on time. But I'm not stupid. I set up a P.O. box and started having important mail sent there instead. When Patricia asked why I wasn't using the convenient new neighborhood system, I just smiled and said I preferred the old way. Her eye twitched again. Harder this time. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. I'd been expecting a paper check from my old school district, a small reimbursement for classroom supplies I'd purchased years ago. Nothing huge, maybe $300, but it was mine and I wanted it. The check never arrived. I called the school. They confirmed it had been mailed to my address. I called the Postal Service. They confirmed delivery to the neighborhood cluster. I even checked with my neighbors, maybe it had been misdelivered. Nothing. That's when I noticed Patricia had suddenly upgraded her car. New BMW. Shiny and expensive. She'd also started bragging about her successful investment strategies at the last HOA meeting. Interesting timing. I filed a complaint with the Postal Service about missing mail. Standard procedure, they investigate. They find nothing. Life goes on. Except this time, I mentioned my suspicions about the mail management system. That got Inspector Rodriguez's attention. Mrs. Thompson, Rodriguez had said when he called, "We'd like to conduct a more thorough investigation. Are you willing to cooperate?" Was I ever? They set up a sting operation. A fake check, made out to me, with special tracking capabilities. We mailed it to my address and waited. The check arrived at the neighborhood cluster on a Tuesday morning. By Wednesday, it had been cashed at a bank across town. The security footage was beautiful. Patricia, in her usual blazer, confidently walking up to the teller window with my check and a fake ID. She'd even practiced my signature, though not very well. But the cherry on top. The federal investigators had been monitoring the neighborhood mail system for 2 weeks. Patricia had been intercepting and stealing mail from at least 6 different residents. Social security checks, tax refunds, insurance payments. She'd been running her own little crime syndicate from behind her clipboard. The morning of her arrest, Patricia had knocked on my door with her usual swagger. She'd found a new violation to cite me for. Apparently, my welcome mat was improperly aligned with my front door. "Mrs. Thompson," she'd said, standing there in her pressed blazer with that smug little smile, "I'm going to need you to correct this immediately, or I'll be forced to escalate this to the county." I'd invited her to wait on my lawn while I went inside to fix the mat. Instead, I called Inspector Rodriguez. "She's here," I said simply. "On our way." Watching Patricia get arrested was like watching a master class in poetic justice. The woman who'd spent 3 years terrorizing the neighborhood over imaginary infractions was being led away in handcuffs for actual federal crimes. The best part, as Rodriguez was putting her in the car, he turned to me with a slight smile. "Mrs. Thompson, we found checks and mail belonging to you and 5 other residents in her home office. There's also evidence of forgery, identity theft, and mail fraud spanning several months. She's looking at serious federal time." Patricia's perfectly composed mask finally cracked. "This is all her fault," she screamed from the back seat, pointing at me. "She never followed the rules. She never respected my authority." I raised my coffee cup in a little toast. "The only authority you have now is the right to remain silent. I'd suggest using it. The neighborhood is peaceful now. The Hendersons' garden gnomes are back in their front yard. Mr. Peterson's flag flies proudly. Everyone's mail arrives on time, delivered to their individual mailboxes like civilized people. And me, I kept my old black mailbox, of course. It's still there, standing strong and definitely not aesthetically consistent with anything. Sometimes karma needs a little help. Sometimes justice requires patience, documentation, and the willingness to let a federal postal inspector do the heavy lifting. But sometimes, the best revenge is simply watching someone dig their own grave and then hand them a bigger shovel. Patricia's sentencing is next month. I'll be sure to send her a card. To her prison mailbox, of course.